Alice Rivers. Who was this woman? A serving wench who dabbled in potions and spells, says Munkin. A woods witch, claims Septon Eustace. A malign enchantress who bathed in the blood of virgins to preserve her youth, Mushroom would have us believe. Between that description from Fire and Blood and her declaring to Prince Daemon Targaryen that he will die in Harrenhal, Alice Rivers knows how to make an entrance. The Witch Queen of Harrenhal, as she is called, the secret main character of the Dance of the Dragons, and my personal favorite character from this era for the tremendous chaos and touch of the old gods that follows her everywhere she goes. Who is this Alice really? What does she want? How long has she been at Harrenhal waiting for the dragons to dance for her? What long dormant magics is she ushering into Westeros, waking the power in the old stones of Harrenhal? In this video, I'm going to try and answer all those questions and more. We are all in on Alice Rivers in this house. Alice Rivers, if that is even her real name, is an enigma in the history of Westeros. She pops into existence during the dance, and the threads of fate seem to weave themselves around her, or maybe she weaves them herself. Hand-turning loom, spools of green, spools of black, dragons of flesh weaving dragons of thread. What we're told in the histories is that she is a bastard daughter of House Strong. Septon Eustace and Grand Maester Munkin point to her being Lionel Strong's daughter, making her the half-sister of Harwin and Larys Strong, and also, curiously, their wet nurses. However, Mushroom adds a little bit of spice to that story, as he often does, and suggests that she is older than Lionel and was his wet nurse as well, both of which are confounding since she appears far too young to be a wet nurse for even Larys Strong, never mind the older Harwin and their father Lionel. This has led to mass confusion in the histories about Alice as well as the fandom, with suggestions that, yeah, maybe she does bathe in blood. Maybe she is far older than she appears. And actress Gayle Rankin isn't helping matters either. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, she had this to say about her character. She's someone who has all this power, who has been alive for potentially 400 years. Rankin herself is 34 years old and has a youthful appearance, while Matthew Needham, playing Larys Strong, is older at 40 years old, seemingly leaning into the confusion of the Fire and Blood account. It could be that the show has abandoned this oddly youthful appearance for Alice. We'll just have to see if it gets brought up. And we know that House of the Dragon has played a little loose with the ages of actors versus characters, as Olivia Cooke is only a year older than her on-screen son, Tom Glencarny. And actors aren't always the best sources of information, as their understandings of their characters can vary depending on later rewrites and edits made to the final footage, or stuff they just made up. Even still, with Fire and Blood's account of her in mind, this is an intriguing choice to cast Gayle looking as young or younger than Larys. Many have wondered if quote-unquote Alice Rivers is even her real name and how old she truly is. There's two characters in A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones that get similar treatment of confoundment at their ages. The first is obviously Melisandre, the Red Witch from Asshai. In books and show, Melisandre wears a magical spell known as a glamour, which allows her to disguise her true appearance from all but the most trained eyes. In fact, Melisandre's actress was quoted as saying Melisandre's true age is anywhere between 100 and 400 years old. The red ruby she wears by her throat appears to be the key to this spell, with her true age only showing up when the choker is removed, much to the horror of millions of fans who lusted after the Red Woman. The same could be true for Alice. Perhaps Alice, like Melisandre, truly is incredibly old and hides behind a magical youthful appearance to disguise that fact. But certainly this isn't the only connection between Melisandre and Alice Rivers, as they play similar roles in the story. And as Gayle said, she is the first entry point to that world of magic. Some more inventive minds even wonder if Alice and Melisandre are the same person, posing as two different magical women at key points in Westeros history. Although we have not seen any of the key magical stones on Alice to support that. The other character that gets the same fragmented and unclear history is a surprising one, Old Nan of Winterfell. While the show does not delve into this too far, in the books, no one at Winterfell knows how old she is, when she arrived at the castle, or even how many lords of Winterfell she helped personally raise. And that includes herself. I could tell you stories about Brandon the Builder, Old Nan said. That was always your favorite. Thousands and thousands of years ago, Brandon the Builder had raised Winterfell, and some said the Wall. Bran knew the story, but it had never been his favorite. Many other Brandons had liked that story. Sometimes Nan would talk to him as if he were her Brandon, the baby she had nursed all those years ago. And sometimes she confused him with his uncle Brandon, who was killed by the Mad King before Bran was even born. She had lived so long, Mother had told him once that all Brandon Starks had become one person in her head. As we can see from that quote, Old Nan has outlived everyone else in her life and has become almost a magical figure in the Stark household. Beyond the confusion about their age, what all three of these characters have in common is their role in the relative stories as ushers into the magical world the people around them scarcely believe. Old Nan is the character that tells us about the White Walkers, the Children of the Forest, and the deep history of the Long Night. And although her stories are dismissed as midwives' tales just like Alice, she has a shocking success rate with legends and stories she tells actually being true. Much the same, Melisandre tells the viewers about the magic of fire and how the future can be seen in flames, the power of blood sacrifice, and the strange and powerful magic of shadow binding. Alice plays sort of a hybrid role between the two crones, where she is reintroducing the world to the old gods and weird magic. However, she also veers towards being like Melisandre, as in Fire and Blood and Gale Rankin's interview, Alice Rivers can supposedly see the future and has legit magical powers while Old Nan does not. On House of the Dragon, we have dragons, obviously, but she's the first entry point to that world of magic, Rankin says. This person can tell the future, basically, Rankin continues. She's someone who has all this power, who's been alive for potentially 400 years. And from Fire and Blood, she saw you in a storm cloud, in a mountain pool at dusk, in the fire we lit to cook our suppers. She sees much and more, my Alice. And we've seen Alice make one prophetic statement already, telling Daemon that he will die in Harrenhal. And she's already making that curious red drink she gives to Daemon that sends him on his drug trip and leaves him confused and groggy before he even walks up. There's a tremendous amount of oddities around Alice that do not get easier to answer the more we learn about her. And most of all, what is she doing at Harrenhal? A question that the audience and Daemon share. According to Alice, she is the healer of the castle, playing the role of Maester after the last one, quote-unquote, fled in the night and could not settle in. Looking at how Daemon's nights have gone so far, between ending up in front of a weirwood, stalking the castle, chasing ghosts with a sword, and hallucinating during meetings, you can probably see why. Daemon names her a witch, and Alice does not disagree, although she would more accurately be called a woods witch in Westeros, a witch that uses more earthy remedies that veer more into the supernatural and superstition for their craft than the Maester's adherence to scientific rigor. Wood witches are remain from the faith of the old gods, originally being priestesses of the weirwood and serving that role still beyond the wall. In many of the ancient stories of the ancient heroes and the first men, woods witches feature prominently as agents of the gods and magic, often employing blood magic and necromancy. For example, it was a woods witch that created House Tarly by marrying both Harlan the Hunter and Herndon of the Horn. Get it, girl? It was a woods witch that revived the decapitated heads of the Whisperers so they could speak with Sir Clarence Crabb. It was a woods witch that told King Jaehaerys II that from the marriage of Prince Aerys and Princess Rhaella, that the prince that would promise would be born to save the world from darkness. That witch seemed to have nailed that one, whether you believe Jon or Dany is the prince that was promised, as both are descendants of that marriage. Woods witches consistently are shown to have a foot in the supernatural and seem to use that power to drive the course of destiny like a river. At times. They are more commonly seen as local healers for small towns and settlements that can't acquire a Maester of the Citadel, or don't want to. They serve as healers, midwives, and interpreters of fortune and the gods for those who will listen. What's very unusual about Alice is that they don't tend to hang around castles, especially in the south. More often they stick to the wilds and woods, living in huts or hollow trees like Maggie the Frog, who told Cersei Lannister's future in the woods outside Lannisport. More ambitious ones end up like the Green Queen of the Rainwood and the Stormlands, fighting shadow wars from the woods against the Stormlords for decades. Maesters and lords tend to fall between intolerant or dismissive of woods witches, and the same is true for Septons of the Faith of the Seven and their adherents. Woods witches can often be branded as blasphemers and servants of evil and are treated with distrust by populations who follow the Seven, often only consulted by the desperate or the curious. There's an air of a Faustian bargain around them, that a woods witch can help you with whatever it is you need, but the cost may be more than you realize. What I'm driving at here is that it is unique for a castle to have a resident woods witch. And Alice's story about how there was a maester who fled in the night after never settling into the building, not only is that an extremely horror movie way of describing a maester apparently fleeing the castle in terror, there's no time noted by Alice for that event. Alice just says it was the last one. How many maesters have fled Harrenhal? How long ago was that, Alice? Days? Weeks? Months? Years? Decades? Huh, Alice? How long have you been there? Alice's mere presence in the castle marks her as an oddity even among woods witches, and she is certainly taking the witch part seriously. Her witch's den has everything you could want. Candles that have dripped all the way to the floor, bubbling cauldrons, nondescript bottles, herbs and ingredients strewn about, a weirwood apron, and a roaring fire waiting to bring people in from the damp like fireflies to a flame, which tells you something important about her and her relationship to the Lords of Harrenhal. She wields a lot more power and influence than meets the eye. Although the Strongs are first men and perhaps have connections still to the old gods in the Isle of Faces next door, Outwardly, they still follow the Seven. A castle with a Woods Witch entrenched as a Maester replacement would make their neighbors look at them with extreme suspicion. There's no other lord that has that set up anywhere in modern times. Except one, Stannis Baratheon, and everyone thinks he has lost his bald mind for having Melisandre in the castle. Alicent walks around like she owns the place, and who knows, maybe she does. She refuses to bend the knee to Daemon, she comes and goes as she pleases. We've seen no evidence that Simon Strong and his three stooges order around like lords normally do with maesters, and talks to Daemon like they are equals. While Larys is officially the lord and Simon the Castellan, it seems clear that Alicent is the one who acts like this is her castle, the Witch Queen of Harrenhal. Her behavior and place within the castle feels very similar to how the weirwood roots have found their way all throughout the halls and walls of the decrepit building. Always there, impossible to get rid of, and having a supernatural influence that few totally grasp. And with that, let's talk a little bit about what Alicent said to Daemon in this last episode about the sources of curses within Harrenhal. I made a video about this at the end of Season 1, link here and in the description, where I talked about this topic, that the many curses of Harrenhal are largely economic and logistical in nature, that it's an enormous ruin no one can manage and is given to up-jump minor lords and knights who don't know better. However, at the end, I did address this exact idea, that there is something supernatural about Harrenhal beyond the horrors of stewardship and economics. Any magical curse on the building is unlikely to be a spell or a curse like you see in other fantasy stories, but connected to the weirwoods that were cut down and used in the construction of the building, as well as the very nearby Isle of Faces in the center of the God's Eye Lake. And as if Ryan Condal watched that video, Alicent confirms that idea here for me. Cheers to Ryan and Alicent, thank you both very much. Daemon has been experiencing wild dreams and hallucinations ever since he stepped foot within the castle. On his first night, he hallucinated Rhaenyra stitching the head of Prince Jaehaerys back before the tearful and confused Daemon awoke to find himself face to face with the one weirwood tree remaining on the grounds. And in this last episode, he found himself with Rhaenyra in the throne room, with her accusing him of wanting her throne before he decapitates the dreamy phantom. All his regrets and actions he feels guilty about coming to life and being forced to confront them. Those dreams and his sleepwalking to the remaining heart tree can for sure be explained by the influence of the weirwoods, especially since Alicent tells us that Daemon has been sleeping on a bed made of a weirwood heart tree. This has happened before in A Song of Ice and Fire, notably when Jaime Lannister falls asleep against a weirwood stump and has a very similar odd experience. He sees the Mad King, his Kingsguard brothers who confront him as an oathbreaker, his father with a sword, the scorn of his ancestors, his guilt over not saving Princess Elia Martell and her family during the sack of King's Landing, and oddly glimpses the others and a flaming sword with a naked Brienne of Tarth. Hot. This dream has a profound impact on Jaime, inspiring him when he wakes up to go back for Brienne at Harrenhal and save her. That is a key part of all of this as well. These dreams and whispers from the heart trees aren't just vivid nightmares meant to torture. They attack the core of the person, manipulate them, exploit their fears, their worst memories, and desires. It's one of the key powers of the Green Seers of the Children of the Forest, attacking the minds of their foes in the night rather than on the battlefield. This also happens to Bran Stark by the Three-Eyed Crow, Brynden Rivers, a bastard of House Targaryen in Blackwood, in order to manipulate the boy to abandon his home in Winterfell and come north to join him under his weirwood tree. Brynden often appears to Bran's dreams, trying to draw him north, and over time it ends up working, tempting Bran with promises of being able to fly. And somewhere between Jaime and Bran seems to be what's going on here with Daemon. After Daemon awakes from his second dream where he fantasizes about killing Rhaenyra to claim the crown, a dark part of him that he truly desires, what does he do? He has a meeting with the young heir to the Riverlands, Oscar Tully, and tells the boy that he should murder his beloved grandfather so that he can inherit the title and in turn give the Riverlander armies to Daemon. Why this is important is that Daemon has completely screwed up this meeting, as the faces of Oscar and Simon Strong tell the audience. In order to get control of the Riverlander armies, Daemon needs the Tullys to exert control over their vassals for him instead of Aegon. Instead, he offends the future Boy Lord and insults him for being too cowardly to murder his way to power, which is exactly what the Whispers of the Weirwoods just encouraged him to do. A seed planted in his mind that has borne fruit in the waking world, and it has butchered any chance of Daemon easily getting the army he wants. And then what happens after Daemon's first dream, where he ends up outside? His guilt and shame at Rhaenyra and her scolding of him contributes to him not sending any ravens back to Dragonstone and contemplating if he should be prince or king. There is a way back for Daemon here to get over his anger at their argument and find a way back to Rhaenyra with an army and mend the breach between the couple. His weirwood bed and the whispers of the old gods made sure that didn't happen. And key to all of this is Alis herself. She appeared in the courtyard during Daemon's dream walk, seemingly waiting for him. As he comes out of his dream, Alis cryptically informs the prince that he will die in this place and then walks off, leaving nothing but confusion. It's this third dream of Daemon where things are getting very bizarre. Daemon hallucinates what appears to be his nephew Aemon stalking the halls of Harrenhal. Daemon chasing after him with Dark Sister, only to have the apparition turn around and reveal it is himself in an Aemon spirit Halloween costume. This time, instead of finding himself out in the courtyard, he is right outside of Alis's witch's den, as if the hallucination was leading him right to her. And wouldn't you know it, Alis is working on a drink for him as he arrives, as if she knew he was coming. I say that's exactly what the dream was doing. Alis makes small talk for a bit, however what blows Daemon's mind and intrigues him about her is that she starts rattling off the contents of his dreams, the context of the images, and what they mean to Daemon, as well as asking the innocent questions about if he's had any odd experiences in dreams, like she didn't stand in front of him and a heart tree and predict his death. She reveals that she knows that Daemon and Rhaenyra are quarreling, brushing off how she knows that by saying, well, he hasn't sent any ravens. However, there's no explanation given afterwards for how she knows exactly the relationship between himself and Rhaenyra, how he is considering pushing his own claim, that he enjoys having his own castle, how he's resentful of his niece that has overtaken him, and that on some level he's trying to prove his worth and loyalty to Rhaenyra by delivering the Riverlands. She is the most well-informed woods witch in the Seven Kingdoms apparently, and an expert in the psychology of Daemon Targaryen as well as the relationship that Daemon has with Rhaenyra. It's like she's been watching House of the Dragon. Or more precisely, she's been watching the contents of Daemon's dreams and using those to understand the prince and what drives him. Not only knowing their contents, but saying out loud the desires he's most ashamed of, encouraging him to take them seriously. The darkest parts of his desires said out loud by the stranger summoned into the real world by Alis's voice. The dreams he's having and Alis are working in concert, pushing Daemon and Rhaenyra apart while encouraging Daemon to do what his most impulsive, selfish, and savage side desires. There's only two ways within A Song of Ice and Fire to read the dreams of other people. It's weird that there's more than one, right? First is Glass Candles, a magical shard of obsidian that when lit allows the user to spy on places and minds anywhere in the world. Seeing as there's no glass candles in these shots, that option can be discarded. The second, as we discussed previously, is the power of the Green Seers using the Weirwoods. Her line about being an owl in human form is definitely hinting that direction as well. She just offhandedly mentions it. It's almost framed as a deadpan joke at Daemon's expense. However, what she just said is an extremely common sentiment among wargs and skin changers. They spend so much of their time in their animals' minds and often end up preferring it to their own bodies. They begin to think of themselves as those animals trapped in human form. Bran Stark echoes this exact sentiment to Maester Luwin in A Clash of Kings. And in Game of Thrones, Jojen explicitly warning Bran that if he spends too long in summer, he will eventually lose himself. And we know that while not all skin changers and wargs are Green Seers, all Green Seers are skin changers. The relationship between them is very similar to Dragon Riders and Dragon Dreamers, where the dreaming parts of the animal's pseudo-mind control is a far rarer but a connected gift. So as Alis is invading Daemon's mind to learn the contents of his dreams, she should also have the ability to skin change animals. The show is providing us with that link, calling back with the owl reference to characters like Bran. Let's talk a bit about the choice of an owl as well. In Helena's prophetic drawings on her wall, much like the Rat King I talked about in my previous video, there's an owl as well. It appears to be roosting over a giant building and a giant beast with a crown on its head. To me, this seems like a dead ringer for Alis, Harrenhal, and possibly Daemon, which is fascinating that Helena's visions are going far beyond just herself and immediate surroundings. Examining the idea that Alis is a barn owls in English legends and literature, particularly Shakespeare's works, can be seen as a source of wisdom, drawing on the example of an owl being the Greek goddess Athena's avatar, which would check out here. Alis as an avatar of the Weirwoods and Old Gods is a figure with divine powers and wisdom. There's also a far more common meaning that owls are often used as the harbingers of death and bad omens, sometimes called the funeral bird, the monster of night. In Macbeth, for instance, owls are heard or spotted right before characters die or some other tragedy is about to occur. Similar meanings of owls are also used in many of his plays and in folklore. As soon as an owl appears or is heard in the night, bad things are about to happen, which makes for an interesting choice for Alice Rivers, and fits what we've seen so far. Damon's every decision and interaction with her have gone from bad to worse after meeting Alice Rivers the owl. The show goes even further, reinforcing the idea that she's a green seer and connected to the Weirwoods. When Damon arrives, she is preparing some kind of drink or potion, one meant for Damon, as we see when she hands it to him, saying it will help him make use of this place. The key part about this drink is that we see on her hands and while she's making it that the substance is a deep dark red, thick, and curiously looks a lot like blood. After drinking it, Damon loses track of time and awakens groggy with the cup still in his hand in the heart of Harrenhal, treating with Willem Blackwood, the new regent of his house, with his brother Samwell slain in the Battle of Burning Mill. Yes, that William Blackwood. He's back! Considering the sigil of House Blackwood is a weirwood surrounded by ravens, this means that this is the 4th out of 4 dreams that Damon has awoken from in front of a weirwood of some kind. The first, obviously, the weirwood in the courtyard. The second, his weirwood bed and his bloody hand. Weirwood leaves are often described as bloody hands due to their shape and color. The third, Alice Rivers' weirwood apron and her curiously red drink, and the 4th, Willem Blackwood with his weirwood sigil and faith in the old gods. Those are some very, very heavy suggestions that the trees are involved with the dreams, and by extension, Alice is not so secretly the green seer, making use of them to mess with Damon. The reason for making it this blatant is that most of the audience will not know or remember what weirwoods can really do. They're being called attention to heavily, just the same as the Blackwoods and Brackens got in the last episode, getting massive amounts of explanation. The show is laying the groundwork for casual viewers to understand what's really going on, combined with Alice's narration. They want you to make the connection that Damon's dreams are not just kinda weird, but being manipulated by supernatural forces. Dream, Alice, Weirwoods. A simple formula that can be remembered easily. Back to that drink. We've seen something like this before in the books where a character drinks a gloopy liquid with something that looks like blood in it, and suddenly their mind's third eye is open and they start hallucinating and seeing wild, uncontrolled images. That happened again to Bran Stark. That a lot of these references are about Bran makes sense, as he is the most visible green seer from the show and books, so they're trying to make an easy connection here. After he arrives in Bloodraven's cave in the far north and meets the children and the ancient Blackwood bastard, Bran is given a quote-unquote weirwood seed paste to consume. Bran, much like Daemon here, goes on a wild and uncontrolled barrage of visions and images. His mind skips across time and space, seeing images of the far past and the long dead. The really curious part, though, is how Bran describes the weirwood seed paste. Something about the look of it made Bran feel ill. The red veins were only weirwood sap, he supposed, but in the torchlight they looked remarkably like blood. He dipped his spoon into the paste, then hesitated. Will this make me a green seer? Your blood makes you a green seer, said Lord Brynden. They will help you awaken your gifts and wed you to the tree. It's entirely possible that Alice has done the same thing here to Daemon as happens to Bran, and given him the weirwood paste to unlock his mind. It's after he drinks it and wakes up that he begins hallucinating with his waking eyes instead of just in his dreams, seeing his long-dead wife as a serving girl. For any of you in the know, there's a popular fan theory called Jojen paste, where the red substance in the paste that looks like blood actually is blood. Specifically, Jojen reads, his blood and body being fed to Bran, as many old god rituals typically involve human sacrifice. Bran even saw one in his visions, where an old god priestess slits the throat of a man before the weirwood, and Bran tastes the blood seeping into the roots, which asks another intriguing question. Is Daemon being fed that maester who supposedly fled in the night? Perhaps Alice is recreating that scene, and as a priestess of the old gods, she's performing a human sacrifice for power. Man, Alice is really doing a number on the rogue prince since his arrival. Harrenhal and her are beyond his faculties, driving him to madness. For those of you wondering, of course this is turning into a Larys Strong video. We're pulling the clubfoot into this one. The line I just said is not some clever writing from me. It's a line from this episode that Larys said about what Harrenhal will do to Daemon. Larys is well aware here that the weirwood whispers at night and the effect they can have on people, driving them to madness. He accurately predicted that Daemon would be overwhelmed and taken in by the building, or more precisely, the woods witch that has lived inside of it for God knows how long. Matthew Needham said a similar thing in an interview when asked about his character Larys's relationship to Harrenhal, and here's what he had to say.
I don't think Larys has particularly warm, fluffy feelings about Harrenhal. I don't think he was having many postcard moments there. I think he knows the power that it has. I think he knows that there's a dark magic that lives there that plays tricks on people. So I think he kind of knows what Daemon's in for.
Larys doesn't have fond feelings of Harrenhal and the dark magic that is there, and knows it can overwhelm unprepared minds. As I've alluded to, he's aware of Alis, what she can do, and the weirwoods that whisper and infect the minds of Harrenhal's denizens. Thank you again, Ryan Condal, for the very first confirmation in this show that Larys is aware of the supernatural world of the weirwoods and that the Children of Forest are real. Boy, it seems like we're getting closer and closer to Larys actually being a skin changer in Greenseer, you guys. How many times did Larys Strong in his youth also wake up in front of that heart tree? Did his wet nurse Alis offer him a similar goopy drink as Daemon that opened his mind? Was that Larys's own weirwood bed that Daemon is now sleeping in? It would make sense that that is Larys's room, the Lord's room, left unoccupied and given to Daemon upon his arrival. It may be that Larys has also had his dreams haunted by Alis Rivers all his life, or he could even be her student. Their tactics, behaviors, manipulations, and what they are encouraging in the Dragon Riders are shockingly similar. At court, Larys is encouraging Aegon to give in to his every impulse while also breaking apart his relationships to those closest to him, fracturing the Greens. It is his comment about Otto Hightower being Viserys' hand, as well as the hanging of the Ratcatchers, that removed Otto Hightower from court and King's Landing. And it was also Larys who allowed Aegon to get his first blood by killing Blood with a mace. It was Larys' whispers about Alicent and Aemon seeking to ruin Aegon's place should he go to war that makes Aegon suspicious of Aemon, which then led to him bullying Aemon in the brothel, which infuriates Aemon enough to embarrass Aegon in the council and then try to kill him with dragonfire. It's the same pattern we're seeing with Alis and Daemon. Knowing way too much, encouraging impulsive, violent, self-destructing behaviors while also breaking apart key relationships. We'll have to see more of these two to say for certain if they're acting in concert to manipulate the Greens and the Blacks, or if Larys is just repeating Alicent's example from his youth in Harrenhal. From the similarity in their tactics, and if my theory is correct from season 1 about Larys, possibly their supernatural powers is something highly intriguing to keep your eyes out for. There's one more topic I want to discuss here, and where do these powers for Alis come from, and what are her real origins? The Strongs are first men, meaning like many of their kin across Westeros can sometimes have the power of skin changing. However, outside my theory about Larys, there's not really any known history of that occurring within the House Strong. And Alis doesn't really look like a Strong, neither does Larys. Their family are typically, like their house name, bulky and strong. Harwin and Lionel are far more in line with the other historical members like Sir Lucamore Strong, who is described as a strapping, broad-shouldered, young blonde bull. The Strongs have long since been known as a house of warriors, with deceptively sharp minds underneath their muscles. But then you look at Alis and Larys, they're nothing like that. Not only that, they have dark hair and features while being slight and skinny. They sound to me like Blackwoods. Consistently throughout the ages, the Blackwoods are described as being skinny and slight with dark hair and dark eyes. And the Blackwoods are also heavily implied to have connections to the Weirwoods with their great Weirwood in Raventree Hall, their association with ravens, and that they wear a Weirwood on their crest. And let us not forget their most famous magical son, the previously mentioned three-eyed crow Brynden Rivers, aka the Blood Raven, who became the living avatar of the old gods. Adding on to that, Alis's chosen animal is an owl. While it's not a raven like the Blackwoods, owls and ravens share reputations as birds of ill omen and of very high intelligence. Larys' mother is unknown, and Alis's entire past is a giant mystery. It would make a lot of sense, especially for Alis, if one of her parents actually was a Blackwood. In past videos, I even noted how similar his behaviors, supernaturally effective spying, and control of the court mimic Bloodraven, who in his youth before becoming a tree god, served as Master of Whispers to the Red Keep. Alis unambiguously fits with the other parts of Bloodraven, with her witchy powers being a direct parallel to Bloodraven's eventual ascension to a Greenseer. If you sort of combine Alis and Larys, you get Bloodraven. I would not be shocked to find out during House of the Dragon if one or both of Alis and Larys are actually Blackwoods. Or if we're feeling very spicy, maybe Larys is Alis's son. To wrap this all up though, let's ask the big question. Why is Alis doing any of this? What are her goals and motivations? Fire and Blood is no help, as the sources at the time basically said, I don't know, she's a witch. So let's make some hypotheses. With what we've seen with Daemon, she's encouraging him to create a third faction for his own, splitting from Rhaenyra in the Dance of the Dragons. The obvious impact would be causing even more chaos and death, particularly from dragons. Imagine if instead of Caraxes being a site of comfort for the Blacks, the Great Red Dragon being a fatal threat. The more the dragons fight each other, the higher the chance more dragons will die, and that may have a few benefits to a servant of the old gods. It could be sort of like the Lorax, the speaker for the trees idea. As the years have gone on, more and more weirwoods get cut down and there's less followers of the old gods. The Faith of the Seven have become dominant in every region in Westeros except the north and beyond the Wall. And critically, in order to curry favor with their new vassals, the Targaryens converted from their Valyrian dragon god worship to the Seven. Any sort of old god's resurgence would need the dragons to either be removed or converted to have a shot in any kind of holy war. And there's some evidence that has been at play here and in the future of Westeros. For instance, Daemon's first alliance in the Riverlands is not with the Faith of the Seven worshipping Tullys, but the devout followers of the old gods, the Blackwoods. The idea of the old gods versus the Seven is a plotline that Game of Thrones largely dropped from the narrative. However, it's much more prominent in the source books, with clashing faiths and belief in the objectively real old gods becoming major plot points. Perhaps that is about to happen here, with Alis pushing Daemon and Caraxes into helping the Blackwoods. And look at that, a dragon on the side of the old gods in the First Men. Harwin and Rhaenyra fit that mold as well, with Harwin being a future Lord of Harrenhal and by extension the God's Eye and the Isle of Faces before his fiery end. A very subtle alliance between dragon and weirwood, embodied in Jace, Luke, and Joffrey. And we also know in the future with figures like Brynden Rivers, Jenny of Oldstones, Betha Blackwood, Melissa Blackwood, and Lyanna Stark, among others, that there's a pattern of First Man houses attempting to and succeeding at a very high rate of marrying into the Targaryen family. So perhaps that's one thing Alis is after even this early on, stealing dragons for the old gods or causing their deaths. The second possibility could be similar to the actions of Howland Reed at the Great Turning of Harrenhal before Robert's Rebellion. After communing on the Isle of Faces for months, he strolls into the tourney and subtly sets into motion the chain of events that lead to the downfall of the Targaryen dynasty and also the eventual birth of Jon Snow by making Prince Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark meet each other. Alis, with her ability to see into the future, could also be attempting to play a part in this great game of dominoes, starting with Daemon by getting him to break with Rhaenyra to create a chain of events that lead to the birth of the prince that was promised and the defeat of the others. This also happens in the future. There's a Woods Witch that has aspirations of creating the Chosen One. I already mentioned her. The Woods Witch that accompanies Jenny of Oldstones to court and convinces King Jaehaerys II to marry his son Aerys and daughter Rhaella together to create the prince that was promised, like some sort of tree-worshipping Bene Gesserit, which will align with a very similar character like Melisandre, whose entire purpose in life is finding and supporting the prince that was promised. And who knows, if Gale Rankin isn't just speaking out of turn about Alis Rivers' longevity, maybe that Woods Witch is Alis as well, and maybe even the ghost of Highheart. There's an ancient Woods Witch in the main A Song of Ice and Fire books that lives among a grove of chopped down weirwoods, trading her prophetic dreams in exchange for bards singing of her Jenny of Oldstones. With Alis Rivers, anything is on the table, and that's what makes her so exciting as a character in House of the Dragon. We'll actually get to see beyond the unreliable narration that surrounds her as the Witch Queen of Harrenhal and see what the Owlu in human form is really up to. Whatever the truth, I know I cannot wait to find out, and I hope now you do too. Thanks for watching.